Today's project is using some chameleon pigment magic on this textured tree log mold to create a beautiful resin coaster. Before we prep the mold, let's mix our epoxy resin. After stirring slowly for around 4 minutes to minimize the bubbles till the resin mix becomes clear and runny, we put it aside to degas while we prep our tree log mold. These 3 chameleon pigment mixes are going to bring out the texture for the coaster. We will start with the darkest color for the periphery, sort of imitating the color of the bark. While in an actual log, the dark colors is just along the rim. Here we will take it a little more inside, just for dramatic effect. This project is perfect for using chameleon pigments. I imagine that the texture of the surface with its grooves and undulating texture will help reflect the light in varied ways, bringing out the best of these chameleon pigments. I will not make the color rings perfectly concentric. I will break them up here and there to imitate the cracks that we see in log sections, which start from the surface and go towards the center in various degrees of intensity. I think this will help in keeping true to the natural theme of this beautifully textured silicone mold. The center has the lightest color. I'm going for this next because it will be easier for me to create the gradient between the center of the coaster and the rim more easily once these two colors are in place. Another reason for putting this down before the middle shade is that I prefer to have the lighter colors brushed in before the darker ones. It just makes it easier to deal with the layering of the pigments. Let's brush in the third color and complete this composition. This color is not really the smoothest transition between the center and the outer darker color. However, because this is not a realistic rendering and more a dramatic celebration of the texture of a log section, we will use this to bridge between these two colors, blending in certain areas and letting the rings in the texture create a hard line of difference in other areas to create some visual drama. Our rendering of the surface with Chameleon Pigments is almost done. It looks pretty dramatic. Look at the shimmer and how the colors look in different angles. Let's get this ready for resin pouring by tapping away any loose pigments. A quick cleanup of stray pigments with an alcohol wipe before we begin our pour. I am trying to follow the pattern of the rings and pour as slowly as possible because I wish to avoid bubbles being trapped between the resin and all these tiny grooves. I poured the resin almost immediately after degassing before it moves into its honey state so that any trapped bubbles may have maximum time to escape. In this case, it is very hard to visually check for bubbles and dislodge them with a toothpick, as I often do in simpler surface molds. Let's heat gun some of these surface bubbles. Now we leave it to cure. The first layer has cured and it's time for the darker base layer which will make all the pigments pop. I'm using a dirty mix of black mica pigment and epoxy resin here for this layer. I love the way the pigments make a streaky radiating pattern when it cures, and I feel that this will look really nice upon curing even though this surface will not always be visible. My coaster has finally cured and I can't wait to demold it. This base layer is looking amazing. The doming is perfect. Look at the radiating play of pigments and how they shimmer. Let's ease this out of the mold slowly now. The edge is already looking captivating. And it's out. Love it. The gradients of the rings have worked really well and the play of pigments is slightly different from what we saw on the other side. I think the pigment flakes get flattened and they reflect light differently. The texture and the overall look here is really intense. You can see the residual pigments in all these places which had the bubbles. It doesn't hurt the look of the coaster though. It reminds me of termite holes that you see sometimes in wood. I can foresee a lot of maintenance in the future for these grooves as they eventually become home to dust from the environment and other occasional spilled beverage. This coaster has a raised profile and I can easily dome the central area with a coat of clear resin. A protective layer might give me a surface that is easier to maintain while preserving the aesthetic beauty of this texture. But I prefer this tactile version more than an evenly coated surface. What would you do? Let me know in the comments below. This is just looking awesome. Just look at how the colors are working together with the texture. The play of light is just mesmerizing. And it is also slightly translucent and can glow with some backlighting. I love working with Chameleon Pigments in resin projects. The whole process of painting in the pigments is so therapeutic and the results are stunning without fail. This lock texture can also work with monochromatic hues or maybe a Morandi color palette, depending on the artist's preference. Hope you enjoyed this video. Happy crafting and have a wonderful day.